Right, I'm going to call the meeting of the Human Affairs Committee to order. And the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would anybody like to lead us in that?
I'll do it.
All right, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. The next order of business is roll call. So committee member Brooks, she's not here. Committee member Dreyer.
Here.
Committee member Adone.
Here.
Committee member Grace.
Here.
Committee member Krettinger.
Here.
Committee member Olds.
Here.
And committee member Salas.
Here.
All right, wonderful. And
Just,
the next,
hi, sorry, this is Cecilia Gallardo-Daly, the Community Development Director. Just a little bit of housekeeping as we're getting started here. Janet is leading the meeting at this point in time, but as soon as the committee nominates a chair and a vice chair, we'll be turning over the meeting to the chair to run the meeting. Staff's just taking it on at this point until you can elect a chairperson to run your meeting. Great, thanks. All right, take it away.
was muted. That's the next order of business. Now a nomination and selection of a chair and a vice chair.
Before we do that, I'm going to just read the duties of the chairperson and the vice chairperson, so everyone has familiarity of what those responsibilities are. And this is from the manual that the city clerk handed out to the commissions and committees. So each commission and committee appoints a chairperson and a vice chairperson from among its members for a one-year term. These appointments take place at the first regular meeting of each commission and committee meeting occurring after council makes its annual appointments to each city body, and those new members assume office. The chairperson acts as the presiding officer at all meetings. In the absence of the chairperson, the vice chairperson shall preside. In the absence of both the chairperson and vice chairperson, the members present shall elect a presiding officer from the members present to assume the duties of the chair for that specific meeting. The chairperson may represent the commission or committee at council meetings or other meetings when so authorized by the majority of the commission or committee. Right.
I'd like to nominate myself as the chair. I've presented at council many times. I've attended a couple of Human Affairs Committee meetings over the last couple of years, and I have a couple of years of experience on a school district committee and have run meetings under Robert's Rules of Order before for different organizations.
I'd like to nominate Lisa Idone for chair.
Sure.
This Tom Olds, it'd be nice to meet everybody at some point other than on this Zoom call, which I have very little understanding of who I'm dealing with or who I'm talking to. Would there be any possibility that we could forego this nomination process until we get together for dinner or something like that?
I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that.
I don't know what the process is.
I'm okay with it, but I don't think it's consistent with the rules. So
Yeah. Yeah, Tom, we had an orientation, I think it was last month, where the commission and committee members that were newly appointed were sworn in. And there was a presentation by the city attorney on conflict of interest. So if you were all to get together I think we do, oh, there's Thomas again. If you were all to get together, that would constitute a majority of the committee, and that would be a meeting, and that would be subject to the Brown Act. So it's really better at this time for you to appoint a chair. And I think most of you were available or attended the orientation. I think maybe Thomas, you were the only one that could not.
I was in Costa Rica. I didn't even know the
Okay.
meeting was there.
I second Lisa Edone for the chair.
Okay, we have a motion with a second for Lisa Edone as chair of the Human Affairs Committee. Janet, do you want to take roll on that one or take a vote on that one?
Sure. I see that committee member Brooks has arrived. How do you vote? Yes, no?
I vote yes, please.
Okay. Committee member Dreyer,
Yes.
committee member Edone.
Ooh, I get to vote for myself? Okay, I'm voting
I
for
believe
myself.
so, right?
I'll learn the rules of parliamentary procedure. I already read the book. I'll read it a third time. Yes.
Committee member Grace,
Yes.
committee member Pritchinger,
Yes.
committee member Olds.
Sure,
I'm sorry, I didn't, was that a yes or?
it's a sure, no vote, whatever, fine, go for it. Good, yes.
And committee member Salas.
Yes.
Okay, so it passed 7-0. So Lisa Edone, committee member, is now the new chair.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your vote of confidence.
Congratulations.
So now we'll need to nominate a vice chair.
I'd like to nominate myself for the vice chair.
I second that nomination.
I'll throw myself in as a vice chair option also.
I'm sorry, who was that? Was that you, Bill?
Yes.
I'll second that nomination for Bill.
Okay, so we have 2 seconds. Are there any other nominations?
Tom, do you want to be vice chair?
I wish I'd had the orientation meeting, I would have had a little bit more. Sure, you nominate me to be the vice chair, I'd be happy to do it. Thank you.
I'd second
Okay.
Tom. I'd like to second
I'm
Tom.
gonna, let's back up for a second. I nominate Tom Olds for vice chair.
And I second Tom Olds.
Okay, so we have 3 nominations for vice chair and 3 seconds.
Mhm.
Okay. So now we take a vote on individually, one by one. Cecilia, is that?
Yes.
So we'll do so the nomination for Thomas Olds.
Why don't you start with Nina since she was first?
Nina, okay. Okay, the nomination for Amina Dreyer for vice chair, and we'll take votes. So committee member Brooks. How do you vote?
I don't know. I'm trying to decide. I'm so sorry. I know it's our first big decision. I don't know how to choose between the 3. I'm kind of with Tom. I wish we could get to know each other and see what they could bring to the table. I don't know how to decide this.
Janet, would it be possible for the committee to discuss this briefly before voting?
Oh, I like that, Bill.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Because I just kind of feel like on the board I sit on, we all like to I don't know, we all just kind of agree on everything and we like to discuss it so that everybody is in agreement. So I just would love a discussion if you guys are okay with that.
Sounds like a very good idea.
Okay, go ahead and you can discuss.
So maybe
Why don't we
each
start out with
person,
each person who's been nominated, go ahead and give a spiel.
Yes, good idea.
Well, since I was the first one, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I've spent most of my career working with addicted people, mentally ill people, dealt with many, many homeless people, people who need shelter, families who are low income, just really running the gamut of seeking services and connecting people to community resources for many, many years. So I'm certainly not interested in being the chair, but I work very well with team members and would be very glad to share and to learn anything I can to help the people who are living in San Clemente.
Nina, I think those are fantastic reasons for you to be on the committee, and I'm very glad you're here with your expertise. But I guess I consider the chair and vice chair to be more administrative roles. So, like I'm kind of looking for, basically previous committee experience, more specifically, especially if it was maybe with a government or quasi-government organization.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you for the clarification.
That's just for me, just my take, of course.
That's Bill.
Maybe-
You're nominated, right, Bill?
I am.
Okay.
Maybe from the the people that work for the city office, is this a more clerical position? What is your take on the vice chair position? Are they on here or did they jump off?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
This is Janet. It's not clerical. Basically what Cecilia read about the chair's responsibilities, the vice chair would have those responsibilities in the chair's absence.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is Tom Olds. Whatever I would do with this committee would be directed at basically identifying a path that would make sense for the city economically and socially. I'm not really a social worker, although I've done an awful lot of stuff related to feeding the homeless and building stuff in Mexico and helping with the church. My focus is really towards teenage suicide and drug problems. I've had some personal experience with that, and I feel that I might be able to add quite a bit. We certainly have a problem in San Clemente with that, with parents losing children on a level that's ridiculous, and that would be my focus. I'd be happy to do whatever I can to help the committee. I step in and help when I can. If I can't help, I won't help. So anyway, that's my spiel. I'd be happy to help out in whatever way I can. Thank you.
Tom, you're also on the what's the other committee? Investment advisory?
I'm not in the committee. I'm actually their specialist, investment specialist. Because you have a CPA, and I'm also an institutional bond trader, and I do this mathematical stuff. I trade treasuries with primary dealers and hedge funds out of my San Clemente location. And that's what I do for a living. I basically work from about 4:35 in the morning to about 1 in the afternoon.
I thought you had a city role to do with finance in some position, some way or another.
I'm not. Apparently, I don't get paid for it, which is fine. I think the committee meets 4 times a year. It's kind of a nothing job as far as I can figure. But look at the portfolio is pretty vanilla. And there's not really much risk taking at all. So I'm not really sure the whole purpose of it. I'm going to find out eventually, but I'm happy to help out with the city. Gene James got me involved in this thing. I'm happy to help out. I'll jump in when people need me, and or if they call upon me. So that's how I work it. And if I'm needed, I'll jump in. That's probably the vice chair thing has to do. But I certainly have a great personal feeling emotionally about some of the things that are happening in the city that drive my participation and interest in participation. The investment committee thing was just kind of that's something I do for a living. I wonder if they need me. The guy calls me up and said, "Oh yeah, we need you." So anyway, that's it.
Very interesting. It's great to be able to use your primary talents to serve the city. But no, I think you've got an interesting resume, Thomas, and I think I can support you as vice chair. And again, for me, I've just got a good amount of committee and service organization experience, and I'm happy to serve in that role if needed.
Okay, so are you gonna pull back your nomination then, Bill, and support Thomas, or are we still with 3 nominations and 3 seconds?
Nina, yeah, you're still. I guess nobody withdrew, did they?
Well, I'd like to withdraw because honestly, the way I'm perceiving this role to be, I would really have to know a lot about Robert's Rule of Orders and be more of that administrative bent. And so I'd actually like to just withdraw my own nomination for that. I think I can be more helpful in other areas. That's, what I'm saying.
Okay.
Certainly. And, I know we spoke at the last meeting briefly about work groups, so there will be a work group that I think everyone can take great interest in and have an active role in. No, I'm interested in it. Tom, if you think you're a better fit, strongly, I don't mind withdrawing my nomination. I am, I think, the only person here who nominated himself, so I don't mind withdrawing that and deferring to you if that's what you'd prefer to do.
Okay, I was asked to do this. I'd be happy to do it. I don't know. I don't know so little about what I'm doing right now. It's ridiculous, but I'm happy to go forward. I have a need to help the city, and I desire to do this. So I go ahead, vote, and we'll just see where the cards land. I'm good.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we'll vote for Member William Kirchner for vice chair. And we'll start with the beginning. So committee member Brooks, yes or no?
Oh, I'd like to vote for Tom, but thank you, Bill. I agree with what you said, that I agree with what Tom said, and I just appreciate your willingness, both of you, to step up and volunteer. So thank you, Bill. I think I just appreciate that conversation. I'm gonna go with Tom on this for that same reason.
Okay, so we can do that approach then. When I call you guys can just decide, tell me which one you're going to vote for.
Mm-hmm.
So committee member Dreyer.
I'm going to go ahead and vote for Bill.
Okay. Committee member Adone.
I'd like to cast my vote for Tom.
Okay. Committee member Grace.
I'm going to go with Tom. Thank you.
Committee member Salas.
I'd like to vote for Tom Olds, please.
Okay. So then we have committee member Olds.
Well, I guess you got me. I'll vote for myself. What the heck?
And then committee member Kirttinger.
I will also vote for Tom Olds.
What a guy, Bill.
So it passes 6.
Why split things when you don't have to, right?
Yeah.
6-1. And now committee member Olds is the vice chair.
So
Thank you. I'll try to do a good job.
Well, I look forward to working with you, Tom. And I just like to make a quick comment that when we identify the working groups, the subgroups, Bill, I think you're going to bring a tremendous skill set as well, and all of the other members of the committee for that matter. But I sort of see this as like microcosmic leadership roles. I mean, many different pressing issues, and we're going to accomplish the most by dividing into work groups. And, we do a lot of the heavy lifting that needs to occur for our work plan that we need to submit by the next meeting. So I just want to say thank you for raising your hand to serve a leadership role. And I think you will be serving essentially a de facto leadership role.
Thank you, Lisa. That was very kind of you to say, and I look forward to discussing that material, I believe, under item 6B.
Correct.
Okay, so at this time, we are turning the meeting over to Lisa to run. So Lisa, take it away.
Oh boy, okay. Well, thank you all for your vote of confidence. I certainly appreciate it. I think we have a great group here that come at this from different perspectives, which is extremely useful. Tom, we look forward to getting to know you in person since you were away. And I see a familiar, or not a familiar face, a familiar name in the lower left-hand corner that many of us have been really excited to meet. So without any further delay, I'd like to introduce Carly Hunter and have her speak to us for a moment about her role, her responsibilities. We've heard just great things said about you, Carly, and about the things that you've accomplished in such a short period of time. So for those of you that don't know, Carly is our new community outreach worker, and I think her runway's been very short. And she's been out in the field, and she's been out in our community, and she's hard at work already. So Carly, would you like to speak to the group? You're on mute.
Not your settings, but maybe your mic is unplugged. We can't hear you.
Carly, see under your name if there's a little red microphone with a slash mark through it, or turn your volume up on your computer if you're using your computer audio, which is all the way on the right. It's like a little speaker.
She can't easily tell us, but
I know.
Carly, if your microphone gain is adjustable, that might be another option. And maybe just checking the 3.5 millimeter plug if it's an external microphone. I'm so sorry that you're having this trouble.
So Carly, give me a thumbs up. Are you using your computer audio? Thumbs up or thumbs up? Okay. So take your cursor and wiggle it over the names of us, where all the little thumbnails appear of everybody. In the lower left-hand corner, there's a microphone. See if it says mute my audio and click on it to open up your microphone.
If that doesn't work, typing microphone settings into your search bar and making sure that access is enabled is another thing you can do to try to troubleshoot that. Oh, I see you've got help there. I'm sure you're in good hands.
Or Carly, on the Zoom meeting, there's dial-in information. If you want to use your phone, we can see you and see your face, and then you can use the speaker on your phone to speak to us if you'd like to do that. Oh, good. We have more help. Great.
Is there something else maybe we could cover while we're waiting on her?
Good idea.
The approval of the minutes. Yes,
Oh,
should
good.
be, that's next.
Okay, so
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
second. So minutes are approved. Right, did I do right?
I second.
Yeah, there's two, actually, there's 5A and 5B, so there's two different sets of minutes that need approved.
Okay, so I move to approve 5A, the minutes, 5A and 5B under the agenda. August 26th
second that.
meeting. Yeah, it's the joint meeting and the special meeting of the Human Affairs Committee.
Perfect.
I'll
Okay.
second that motion if the previous second didn't count for whatever reason.
Yeah, I second that also.
And if
Thank
you
you.
could have
So-
them take a vote on that, please, Lisa.
All righty, so Nina, how do you vote?
Approve.
Thank you. Bill?
I approve of the minutes.
Rosemary?
Approve of the minutes.
Sherry?
Approve.
Tom?
Yes, approved.
Michelle?
Aye.
Approved, aye.
You
Okay,
guys hear me now?
perfect. Minutes are approved. Oh, is that Miss Carly?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Yeah, and we can see you, so it's like a jackpot. All righty. So why don't
Hi, you
we
guys.
turn the floor over to
Sorry about
Carly
that.
and then we'll move on with the rest of the new business. So
I
Carly,
apologize for that,
you got the
everybody.
floor. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I apologize. Thanks, Cecilia, and everybody coming over to help me. So my name's Carly Hunter. I've been working with the homeless population for about 10 years now. I love it. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I have a firm belief that everybody deserves to be inside, be healthy and taken care of. And also, I also can see a residence side of City San Clemente. I was born and raised here, so I can understand what it's like for people living in the city. And so I just try to do everything I can to help out the homeless as well as helping out the city and just trying to clean up everywhere I go, I guess. And it's definitely been a lot of work, but I enjoy it, and it's what I'm happiest doing. So a little background, I guess.
So what are can you share with us maybe a few of the things that you've done since coming on board? Because I know you got busy right away and you were out in the field immediately. So do you mind sharing a little summary with us?
Sure. So when I got here, my main goal was to just get out there and get to know a lot of the homeless community and also reconnect with all the homeless resources that I've been in contact with forever. And so I think and then also getting linked up to what's called HMIS, which is a homeless management information system, which is something that goes out into all of the county of Orange. So you got a South HMIS called a SPA. So it's like a FAM and Mercy House and the Friendship Shelter, and now we're a part of it, but that took some time. But now I can enter clients into this system, which then kind of pings their information out and hopefully gets sucked up by some kind of agency that can help them, like FAM, which would be a perfect option because they have all kinds of resources. I've helped a lot of people. So that's been a huge thing, is getting a part of that HMIS system. I've done, I think, maybe 8 or something about that, Homeward Bound through FAM. Also, so that is, I think most of you probably know what that is, but it's helping people get back home if they are here and they're homeless, but they have somebody in, say, Las Vegas seems to be a place that this happens. And if I can get on the phone with somebody that will accept them in Vegas, then we can help them get there, and then they're housed in Vegas and no longer homeless and or here. So that's been a good resource that I've been using. Also, we've done, just getting people off the streets and into matching people in this system. So I've matched numerous people to FAM and Mercy House and Friendship Shelter and Illumination Foundation and different places like that where they can get all kinds of help, as well as working closely with OC Health. They come out and kind of get on a more mental illness level with the clients. And then also, linking into different sobriety, like rehab type of places in town. But a lot of what I'm doing is just helping people get linked to the best option for them to not be homeless.
Carly, can you give us an idea of how many people you've gotten into services, like on, say, on a monthly average, or?
Gotten into services, like depending
Gotten
on
them
what
off
services.
the streets and into, yeah,
Off the
you gotten them off the streets.
If I'm looking at my stuff right now, I think 11. If we include, I think about 15.
Okay, since you've been here.
Yeah, and that's people that a lot of those are homeward bound folk, and then some was like to different shelters, different hotels. Got a guy that had been homeless in San Clemente for over 30 years. He just got housed last month in San Juan, so he is, so that's like the best case scenario, is getting somebody linked into an actual apartment. That's the end game. It's a long game, but it's the end game. And hopefully with some wraparound services to help them adjust to living in an apartment and on their own.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Hello, please leave a message after the tone.
Carly, HMIS, is that basically the gateway to the coordinated entry system?
Yes.
Okay, and you have access to that?
I do.
Fantastic.
It took a while, but I got it.
I remember you didn't have it at a previous council meeting, but I'm glad to hear you got it.
Right. That was a number one mission. Janet was amazing through that. She helped out with that a lot, and that is a very, very important thing. That means I also get to enter people into that system, and I also get to specifically advocate for our San Clemente clients. So it's like I go to these meetings, and there seems to be a lot of them. There's like 4 a week, and we talk about like yesterday it was the vet registry. So we talk about vets that are on the street, and we try to see best case scenario. So we do vet, we do different matching, chronic. I think there's a COVID one on Monday. So it gets them into that coordinated entry system, and that helps them get linked to, big organizations that have better resources.
Carly, do you have any insight? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rosemary.
Carly, how many would you say homeless we have on the streets in San Clemente?
I'm trying to see what I have here on just for this month, and it's not even a done month. In August, I interacted with about 57 unique individuals. So
okay.
I would say between 50 and 70 at max. I wouldn't even go that high.
Okay. And do most seem service resistant?
No.
No? Okay, good.
Some are, but it's not. They're not. I wouldn't say most. No, I would say
okay, good.
Some are
good.
very, interested in services, and a lot of people want just a hotel, and
right.
So I have to be that bad guy coming in saying, I don't have the funds for a hotel, but let me get you into the right spot to possibly get you into that, a hotel or something like that. But
okay.
No, I would say a lot of people want the help. They sometimes just don't know how to go ask for it. And that's why I think for me, the best way and the only way to truly help people is to be extremely consistent. And that's just what I've been doing, just being very,
Okay.
I mean, I may have spoken to 45 people this month, but it was 150 different times.
Right.
So
Okay.
I make
Perfect.
sure to,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Carly, the number you gave there, if I may, it's pretty close to the point in time count as of 2019. So it sounds like you've got excellent coverage. But I wanted to ask of you, since you're in those meetings with the coordinated entry system, I understand that people are kind of ranked and scored based on their duration, homeless, their disabilities, and then there's special categories like you mentioned for veterans and others. For a person, say, who's not a veteran, but maybe has some other disability, how long would they have to have been consistently homeless before they would be at the top of the list for resources? Do you have any insight into that? That's kind of technical. So
Well, it's just that there are this isn't just San Clemente and then I get to rank them. This is all of Orange County, including Santa Ana, including Garden Grove. So if you dial in, say, our 60 people and they're, Laguna Beach has even more than that, there's going to be a lot of people in it. And so to score high to get services, it can take a while. It can take a minute. And some people might not get matched, and so it's just we have to figure out other resources. But there's no quick or
there might not be a hard, fast answer to that question. No, I believe a resource can be stipulated to be for people connected to a certain area, right? So if we, like hypothetically, if we had resources that the city had a hand in providing in that coordinated entry system, those resources could be reserved for people connected to San Clemente, people that you work with.
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah.
That's very good.
At least I would fight for that. I mean, that would be if it's,
Yeah, I understand that they can be kind of tagged for a lot of different reasons, and geography or residential connections are one of them.
Right.
But that's good to know.
We were in a vet match yesterday, and it was like people were just screaming out names, trying to get their client that they're working with matched to the two, matched. I think we went down to, you kind of go down lists, and it was real quick. People are fighting for their people in their cities that they're working in, so that's what I, hope to do and plan to do.
Carly, I mean, it seems like there are a lot of resources available, at least that's what we hear. But then if you're trying to work with different individuals and have them, help streamline the process for them to have access to what they need, it sounds like you're just fighting. And it's an uphill battle. Is that true?
Well, I mean, homelessness is an uphill battle. Yes,
Right, of
there's
course.
always going to be people that are, homeless, and there's always going to be people that are fighting for the homeless. But I know that everybody's, trying to give out the resources to who needs them the most. And I think everybody kind of needs all the resources. So it's just, a lot of it's like who has all of their information. The client, does the client have a social security card? Does the client have a birth certificate? Does the client have, you have to get all these documentations in order. So it's a process. Even if you do get matched, there's a lot of stuff that has to be done. And it is fighting for your own clients type of a thing.
Right.
But at least everybody's fighting, in homelessness.
Carly, I have a question on the 50 to 70 that you say that are here. Are those, I know we seem to have an issue with motorhomes on the south end of town where there was that bad accident yesterday. And then up in the business park, are the 50 to 70 including the ones living in the motorhomes, or are they not considered homeless because they're in their motorhomes?
I would say it's a mixture.
Okay.
Depending on if they're getting, stuff from FAM, and if we're aware that they are
Okay.
homeless, and but I would say that it's probably half and half of people that are living in their motorhome.
Okay. Okay. All right. I just wanting that know if they were included in the numbers you've been in contact with. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Carly, can I ask you where most that aren't homeward bound or that don't go to a hotel, what is your biggest connection where they do get placed? I just was at actually at OC Rescue Mission right before I hopped on this call and doing a tour there. And they said that they have so many different homes that there's actually not a wait list there. And the OC Rescue Mission, I don't know if you work with them, but they are incredible. And so I just was wondering, a two-part question, if you work with OC Rescue Mission, and then also where you do place most of the people.
I've definitely worked with OC Rescue Mission before. I mostly work with, a lot of my resources are with FAM and the Friendship Shelter and the ASL. Mercy House is big. One of the things that goes along with kind of the service resistant part of is that most of our homeless are San Clemente born and raised locals. And the only reason that they would not be, only reason that they would actually be service resistant is because they want to live in San Clemente. And so the OC Rescue Mission is a little bit out of their comfort zone. So, but that is a very good resource. And if I have anybody that comes from out of state, that's somewhere that I would definitely be referring them to.
Okay, thank you. And I agree. I think that is our number one issue is the service resistant, because OC Rescue Mission, you have to be off drugs and alcohol, and it's more of like a stage 2 recovery, where our biggest problem, and personally where I have less tolerance, is the service resistant, the ones that use drugs and that want to continue being on the street. But thank you, Carly. I think you do an amazing job, and you're so responsive. And so I just wanted to take a chance to say thank you. And I'm so happy to meet you face to face, because I think you're an amazing asset to San Clemente.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Carly, I have another question in what you were just talking about. When you say they're San Clemente locals, at what point do they become a San Clemente? Like, because we know some are not from San Clemente, but they're classified as San Clemente now. At what point do they become San Clemente's homeless?
When I say kind of San Clemente locals, I'm usually talking to people that were born and raised, went to San Clemente High School.
Okay.
To me, that's more of a local.
Okay.
And that's, the transplants are kind of the ones that I'm gonna focus a little bit more on, the family reunification. I do have people that have, moved here and then owned, paid rent in an apartment for, 5, however many years, and then are now homeless here that I feel like, are also local.
Okay.
But I don't really give anybody like a local status or not. It's usually they're telling me if they're local or not. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Carly, are you familiar with the Jamboree study, United Way Jamboree, and from a few years ago?
Yeah.
I know that also reported that most homeless are locals, like the overwhelming majority. And
Yeah.
I
They
think there's
usually stay close to what they know.
exactly,
you know?
as we all would.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that got the wrong idea about some of this information from one place or another. So I hope that anybody in the public, and certainly everyone on the committee, familiarizes themselves with that study and with the point in time count and other resources that can help get some of the baseline information that is so important in addressing homelessness.
Carly, Tom Holtz here. What's basically the average age of these homeless people?
God, it's a good question. I wouldn't be able to give you an average age. I can tell you that I would say maybe
Majority.
in the
Above 25,
I mean,
below 25, something like that.
above, definitely above 25. I would say I feel like it's our middle age. Sorry.
Carly, the
I
study
mean, I feel like
says
there's
52% 50 and older, if that helps.
I was gonna say they seem. I would say, unfortunately, there are a lot of older folks out there than I'd like to see. I don't want to see anybody out there that's spending their retirement years homeless. But I mean, there's some. I would say 30 and up for sure. 30 to 72 probably.
Are there many below 21?
No.
Okay, good.
Not that I've come in contact with, at least not since I've been doing working in San Clemente. No.
In terms of illegal or non-residents in the homeless population, is there a percentage you might be able to gather?
Of which one? What's the question?
The homelessness that exists in San Clemente, is there we've got this big border crisis. Are these all U.S. citizens that we're running into, or are there a lot of illegal aliens that are showing up in terms of the homeless ranks?
I haven't come across any illegal aliens, so I would
Good.
say,
Okay.
yeah.
So Carly, thank you again for everything you do. I've heard some wonderful things about you. I haven't met you in person yet, but hopefully someday I will. I just wanted to ask, I know you touched on, how many outreaches you do like per month. How many people do you typically talk to in a day? And do you have like a specific plan on a specific areas that you go to when you kind of set out for your day to go speak with them? I'm just kind of curious how that process works.
Yeah, I mean, I before I leave the office every day, I pretty much know what I'm doing the following day. I try to make scheduled appointments, and I will meet anybody anywhere, wherever wherever they're able to meet me. I definitely hit up a lot of the normal places first. I mean, I pretty much go down to North Beach the very beginning of almost every shift. I go down to the Pier Bowl. I go through Marblehead. I just do kind of a whole loop of everything to, depending on if I have any emails or phone calls of anybody complaining about somebody or, saying, hey, I see someone here. So I kind of follow different leads. I also follow whatever I've scheduled. On a normal day, I would say depending on if I have, like interviews for HMIS, because that can take some time. I would say like this morning, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This morning I spoke with 9. I met up with 9 different people just between 9 a.m. and 11:30, and then I have a meeting at 3 with another client that I got into a hotel last week. So I'm going to go and see how the progress is going on that one. So just every day is kind of different, but I also try to keep it kind of the same. And I also, I give everybody that I work with, the clients, I give everybody my cell phone. So if anybody, needs something right away, I'm able to, quickly help them out and not have to have anything on my personal stuff. So it's like I can look at it and go and help people out however they need it as quickly as possible.
Carly, do you have a resource that you can use to quickly help people with, get IDs done at the DMV? Do you have resources to help them with like document fees, things like that?
Yes, I do.
Good.
I actually have a no fee ID printout for the DMV, and so I'll hand those out, fill them out, hand them out, and I'll get on Social Security on the phone. We'll try to get an appointment for their EDD, all that kind of stuff.
Very good.
Also, as well as trying to, schedule people appointments with OC Health.
But your meeting tempo is astounding. That you're able to meet with so many people in such little time. You're really really
Well,
hustling there.
I am
I
trying to,
guess
I am trying to hustle, but a lot of it's, some of it's just check in and, in that time today, it was all kind of just, hey, you and I are going to meet with your housing coordinator tomorrow at 11. How are you doing? What's going on with you? And then, there's somebody that's in a full-blown crisis, and then luckily OC Health's there to help me. And so, yeah, it's just sometimes I can only see 2 people in one day, just depending
Sure.
on how, what's going on, and yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It'll depend on what they need. Now,
Yeah.
later in this meeting, we're going to be talking about an agenda item, and one of the allowed uses of some grant funds is to, of course, retain you and potentially hire another person in your role. And I want to, of course, use the limited funds to the greatest benefit of the city. And I don't know whether, I guess, what would be better if you had more resources, if there were more resources that the city helped to provide that were available to the people you serve, or if there was another person like you out in the streets trying to meet with people and coordinate with the resources that exist today.
Yes to all the above. But I know that,
yeah, I know we need
that,
both, right?
we need all of
One's
it.
got to be more urgent than the other, right?
But I know that Janet and Adam Atanian, that we discussed this last week, and we have some good ideas, and I think you're on the right track. So I think that there's some things out there that we're going to be working towards getting, whether it's someone out here helping me, or just different funds for different things. All resources and any resources are helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Carly, when you mentioned that the hotels that you get them in, those are local, right? Because you're trying to keep them local in the city.
That depends. There's the one last week was local. I also we got somebody into a Dana Point hotel. Kind of just depends on what's available and what's around. We do want them a little bit local because we go out and we meet them where they're at. And if someone has been gotten into a hotel, that means they're working with an agency. For me, it's either FAM, Mercy House, or Friendship Shelter. So we want to be able to engage with them at any time. So it's always, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. When you do get them services and you have to get, the paperwork filled out for them and everything, do you have an address in the city that you use from, or is there an address required?
I think for the most part we use FAM's address, depending on if we're using or a lot of people use because a lot of these clients have family in San Clemente, so sometimes they'll use their address.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No, you're good.
So Carly, if are the people that you've interacted with, have you found any like moms with kids? Because I see people periodically, asking for money and so forth. And I'm wondering if you've encountered any of those people in your interactions.
I have had only one interaction with a mom who was living in her car with some kids. And that was kind of a high priority for me. They all are, but that was someone that I was able to refer right back to a program that they had already been engaged with, and they were able to get, I'm trying to think of the organization Pathways to Hope. They had already been linked with Pathways to Hope, so we were able to get them back in with Pathways to Hope, and this was a mom that was working, and so she was able to, get shelter for her and her kids, as well as keep her job and then start saving money, and that was
Lisa, are you talking about the people that are commonly outside, like the Walmart Plaza?
Well, and by the 99-cent store and by Target, like I just want, like I've given
They're
them fam information before. If somebody, you know, has a babe in arms and they have a sign that says homeless, because I want them to have a roof over their head and food and, you know, medical care for their kids, etc. So I was just wondering basically how much of it is creative writing on a sign and how much of it is people that really need help. You know, somebody who's a battered woman who's out on the streets, things like that, because just to have a fuller understanding of Carly's experience.
I can't give like a fully, you know, great answer except to say that some of the people that are on the side of the streets with signs are housed. That is just another added income. But I've actually spoken to the lady in front of Walmart. She, you know, she's got a house, she's married, she's got a husband, he works. She's just pulling in a little bit extra cash. I can't say that's about everybody, but for the most part, sometimes they're just making some extra money.
So if we encounter somebody that looks like they're in crisis or they need some help, is it appropriate for us to put them in contact with you?
Absolutely. I'm fine with
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Just because, you know, your heart goes out to some of these folks that look like they're really having a hard time. And, you know, other than calling for a welfare check or calling the sheriffs out to go check on them, I'd like to get them into something functional that can accomplish something positive for them. And it sounds like you're a great bridge to do that.
You can call me anytime, for sure.
Okay.
Carly, could you give us, if you would want those people to contact you on your cell phone, as you mentioned earlier, what would be the best way for a homeless person to contact you if we were to be that liaison to give them your name and number?
You can give them I have an outreach email. I have a desk phone. I have a cell phone. My outreach email, if you guys want to, is, let me grab it because I really should know this one by heart. But you can, my cell phone is 949.
Should that be given over a YouTube meeting or should that be given to people when you make contact?
What I was going to say is, Carly, why don't you email me?
Okay.
I'm on the invitation for this, and I'll distribute your information to everyone. How about that?
Okay. That's a
Is that
great
okay?
idea.
Okay, let's do that.
Thanks for that, Bill.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's maintain your privacy. Good catch, Bill. So we'll do that. Does anybody have any questions for Carly? Because I'd like to move on in the agenda because we have some additional important issues to discuss. And Carly, if you're available and you could remain with us, I think your perspective would be uniquely helpful with what we're going to be discussing next.
Sure. I have to dip out about 2:45 if that's okay. So I've I gotta be somewhere. But yeah, I'm in for at least 15 more minutes if you.
Okay, so let's. With everybody else's permission, I'm going to move on in the agenda, and Carly will send me her information. So if you have questions and so forth, you can certainly pop her an email.
So one more thing, I just wanted to point out to the Human Affairs Committee that Carly's team publishes a report every month that's available on the city's website on the homeless resources page, and it's a monthly outreach report. The monthly outreach report has information like individuals assisted, outreach services provided, the number of street exits, and the demographics of the individuals assisted every month.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I believe the email address and desk phone are on that site also. So there's a good amount of information.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Okay, good. All righty. Well, with everybody's approval, let's move on to our next issue on our agenda, and that is the PLHA grant and a discussion regarding eligible uses of that grant money and what our recommendation is, essentially. So did everybody have a chance to take a look at that grant summary and the different options available for allocating that money? You know, we're not making a decision, we're gonna make a recommendation, but has everybody had the opportunity to review that document so that we can get going with this conversation?
I have.
Okay.
Yes.
I haven't. I just got all the information just the other day. Apparently, I wasn't on a loop of the emails. I found out about this meeting just on Monday, and I thought it was yesterday, but I haven't been unable to really get much information evaluated. So I'm kind of flying blind here. I apologize.
So why don't I, to that end, just make an effort to summarize what this is about, where the options are for allocating these funds. And clearly, you know, my colleagues are welcome to jump in at any moment, but just to give it a broad brush overview. There was a memorandum, a community development memorandum sent out regarding, it's called Permanent Local Housing Allocation Grant Program, PHLA for short. And in essence, the state of California provides us with the city with a lump sum of money each year to spend on housing related. And there are, it looks like about $300,000 available, if not a little bit more, to allocate toward related issues. And there are 10 eligible activities that this money can be used for. And Tom, do you want me to hit them real quickly, what they are?
Yeah, that'd be
so.
great. I appreciate it very much. I apologize for not being more up to date on this.
Okay, no problem at all. So there's 10 eligible activities straight from the memo. The first is, and I'm going to speak quickly, so I hope that's okay. Pre-development, development, acquisition, rehabilitation, and preservation of multifamily, residential, live, work, rental housing that's affordable to extremely low, very low, low, moderate income households. Then pre-development, acquisition, rehabilitation, and preservation of affordable rental and ownership housing, including accessory dwelling units, which are ADUs, that meet the needs of, you know, a workforce that requires 20% of the area median income or 150% of area median income in high cost areas. So those are ADUs are available for occupancy for no less than 30 days. And then there can be few portions of funds placed into local or a regional housing trust. There's also matching portion of funds that are available through low and moderate income housing asset funds. Money can be put there. There can also be capitalized reserves for services connected to the preservation and creation of new PSH, which is permanent supportive housing. Then the sixth area is assisting people that are experiencing or are at risk of homelessness, including, but not limited to, rapid rehousing, rental assistance, case management services and supportive services that allow people to actually obtain and retain housing, operating capital costs for preservation of permanent and transitional navigation centers and emergency shelters, and new construction, rehabilitation, and housing. There can also be accessibility modifications, lower income owner occupied housing. So, you know, perhaps if someone is disabled and there need to be modifications in the dwelling, that's what it could be used for. 8 is the efforts to acquire and rehabilitate foreclosed or vacant homes and apartments to convert those, I would imagine, into low or very low cost housing options. The 9th is homeownership opportunities, including but not limited to down payment assistance. And then the last one is fiscal incentives made by a county to a city within the county to incentivize approval of one or more affordable housing projects. So this is a lot of talk, but it's about various affordable housing options and support options. Now, this will help kind of clarify this very nebulous area, because staff has compiled some things for us to consider, okay? So this is all related to item number 6. And I think we should have a discussion on this. I'll hit what each of them are, and then I'll go back to them and we can discuss each one and perhaps come to consensus on the recommendation. So the options to fund eligible activity number 6 are an additional community outreach worker, similar to Carly. Transportation, so that would be transportation to and from medical appointments, services, shelters, housing, things of that nature. So it could be used for transportation, to fund transportation for people experiencing homelessness. Rapid rehousing is number 3. So that's an intervention where people that don't require ongoing support just need to be rehomed quickly. And it provides short to medium term assistance with the application fees, security deposits, utilities, getting them set up with utilities, et cetera. And the city would manage that. So it would get people that need rapid rehousing, housing, and take care of the support things that they need, like, you know, applying for your utility bill and being able to pay their utility bill, et cetera. And the city would manage services. So that's the one area. And then the other area that the city is making a recommendation to us on is the option to fund eligible activity number 2. And just to summarize, eligible activity number 2 is around the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units, okay? I'm not going to read it all, but it's essentially the city could fund either providing loans to homeowners to develop ADUs. So the city would provide assistance to homeowners that wanted to develop one of these units or multiple units on their property, or preservation of affordable rental housing. So we could provide funding or recommend providing funding to the Mary Erickson Community Housing to preserve the units that are at risk of converting to market rate housing in 2024. So I think that sounds like subsidizing low rent for affordable rental housing rather than have it be increased to just ongoing market rates in San Clemente in 2 years. So I know that was a lot. I'm going to take a breath. Why don't we go back to, with no objection, city recommendations and start with the activities under item number 6 that the city could fund. Let's talk about funding another community. Well, Carly, out of everything I said, did anything stand out to you as yes, yes, yes? That would be my priority of where we want the funding to go, or to make the recommendation to the city that that's where they should spend the funding.
In reviewing this list, one of the things that I found a little bit troubling is one of the biggest problems we have here in San Clemente, these kids dying from suicide, drug overdoses down by T Street. You got a lot of people that are wandering around. Got a real odd collection of folks, and these kids are really at risk. And you know, it strikes me there's nothing even mentioned in this budget stuff. It's mostly about building homes for homeless or whatever. And the homeless situation is kind of foisted on us by our government in Sacramento. Apparently they're giving us some money, but I can't help but think that it might be a good idea to use some of this money to really help the families where you've got divorce situations, broken families, there's all kinds of problems we have in San Clemente with families, whether they're in Talega or
Tom,
Cypress Shores.
Tom, I hate to interrupt you, but there's item 7, which is where committee members can talk about the priorities that we each have.
Oh, okay.
And yours are important, and I please don't misinterpret my interruption here. I definitely want to hear everything you have to say on that. You were compelling during the interviews. I definitely want to hear about it. But this is about a specific grant that the state is providing, and the city staff prepared some materials for us to review.
So this actually, just to take a step back, Bill, thank you. This is actually talking about the recommendation to the city on how to allocate the permanent local housing allocation grant. So it needs to be housing related, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
it has to relate to local housing and
Local housing.
things that the grant is eligible to be allocated to.
Could it be like, I mean, I'd like to be innovative a little bit because there are enough kids in the high school that are not particularly good students that would be very benefited by some sort of a work program where they would learn some sort of skills that would be maybe perhaps they wouldn't have to write code or be a doctor. They could do a lot of stuff. And to try and set something up like that for these youth that are getting shoved by the wayside is something. If I was to allocate money for some sort of housing or development or buildings, and even for some sort of a halfway house for kids that are screwed up, and there's plenty of those too. And I would love to be able to figure out how to help those kids. I mean, in all honesty, it's just there's a lot of homeless people, and an awful lot of them, they like being homeless. And I really have a heart for these kids here in San Clemente, and I've seen enough of them die from one stupid reason or another. And there's got to be some way of addressing this, and maybe this isn't the right avenue here. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to break around here because.
Tom, I got an idea. If Janet, item 8 on the list of approved uses is the acquisition and rehabilitation of foreclosed or vacant homes. San Clemente High School could put together a program where they trained students that were interested in construction trades, and they did some work on that in partnership with the city. And that would be an awesome, awesome program. And Tom, tell me, is that something kind of in line with what you're
Absolutely.
thinking of?
That makes a lot of
Awesome.
sense.
Okay, great.
My attitude is just get these kids some sort of an option and get, where you could actually pay people that are tradesmen to get involved and give them something to do. I know mechanics and plumbers and everything else.
Janet, this money, it's a $1.3 million over 5 years. It's that'll get you a house and a half, maybe a house and a quarter in San Clemente. Of course, if the city's buying, if the city's buying vacant or foreclosed, they'll be able to stretch that a little bit further. But it's just not enough money to make a material difference. It's a great use, but for these limited funds, I'm not sure if it's the highest use. I did want to ask. I know the city has an in lieu fee fund. I believe it's got about $2 million in it. Those funds under this program, it looks like they might be able to be commingled with the grant funds to kind of increase the amount of resources available for some of these options. Is that correct?
Cecilia, would you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah, so Bill, the affordable housing funds that get collected are specifically for affordable housing. So they couldn't commingle on something like a homeless outreach worker because that wouldn't be the same as providing a brick and mortar structure. So,
it definitely doesn't fit with all of these, but do you think it fits maybe with an item 8 sort of program?
Yes, potentially.
Okay. Is that something, of course, I'm not an expert in this, and I don't know if anyone else on the committee is knowledgeable on those sorts of subjects, but is that something that could be researched further and brought back? A potential program where the city acquires foreclosed or vacant homes in need of rehabilitation, turns them into affordable housing, leveraging work from, young people in the city? doing skilled trades?
I think it's a good idea, but I don't know a lot about real estate, but I'd be shocked if there were vacant or foreclosed homes. Real estate gets sucked up in a minute.
Yeah,
And,
right now
and
especially.
in this area, my major concern much more would be trying to preserve affordable housing for low to, maybe at risk to medium, like families that are struggling to make it. They are in this area rather than being told you don't belong in this area. They are here. And if we could get some kind of, I know it's not rent control, but what we're talking about, I think it's that last option. Let me go back here on option to fund eligible activity number 2, the preservation of affordable housing. When they're talking about what's going on in 2024, basically what's going to happen then is what's happened in Dana Point with like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath going for $35,000 to $4,000. Dollars, $100 a month. And there are a lot of people who are poor working families that I don't know how they're making it. So I'd love to see us be able to put that forward. It's kind of a preventative measure before we get to homelessness. And I'm not going to call it rent control. I don't know what we could do, but I'd sure like to see that.
Lisa, would you be able to hold like a quick straw poll of the committee to see if we're all in favor of the second item under activity number 2?
Well, actually, I was
that-
going to start at the recommendations, to your point. Why don't we go down the list and with a community outreach worker and then just go through each? Does anybody have, what you had to say was very helpful. Does anybody have something they're particularly passionate about under funding to support activity number 6 or funding to support activity number 2?
Well, these are all very valuable activities, including some that were not on the list that Steph put together here. But we are talking about a bucket over 5 years of about $1.3 million. And that only goes so far. So I think I'm very interested in everyone else's ideas, of course. But I think the highest use of that might be, of course, retaining Carly, adding another person in that or a similar role, perhaps that of like a housing coordinator, because, like what you said, Lisa, there are resources available. They're not easy to find. Having someone who's specialized in that might help get people placed. And they'd be people that are in San Clemente and need that help. So
that's my point, Bill, is it's a small amount of money. So why don't we go through just those recommendations, and then if somebody has something else that they want to add in, but realizing that it's a very small pool of money spread out over years. So with everybody's forbearance, why don't we start at the top? So the first thing, and Carly, did Carly have to leave us? Yes, she did. Okay. So the first thing is to fund another, and I'm going to take notes on this. The first thing is to fund another homeless outreach worker.
May I ask a question of staff?
Sure.
Are the funds adequate to accomplish that and also preserve the affordable rental housing for the Mary Erickson community?
No, not to fund 2 and that. However, that's not going to start.
That's only $128,000 per year starting in 2024, right?
Correct.
So what would we be looking at in terms of an additional outreach worker if we were to try to accomplish both?
It would be very close, and keep in mind these are estimates. Years 3, 4, and 5 are estimates based on the actual revenue received. So that could change it as well. But yeah, so for 2024.
I wonder if the in lieu fee fund could be used to support that Mary Erickson housing. Is that a possibility?
I believe it would be. We could look into that.
So I think we can, with a high level of confidence, support both of those things. And let's go through the points, like you said, Lisa, though, and see if there's anything else that jumps out.
Yeah, I'd like to bring it back to that because so we have the first thing to consider is another Carly, another community outreach worker. Second thing to consider is transportation. for people in need to and from medical appointments, shelters, etc. Third thing is rapid rehousing for people who don't require ongoing intensive supportive services, but get them housing, get them their utility bills paid for, put that into place. Okay. So those are the first three. And then the second chunk for eligible activity number 2 is loans for homeowners for ADUs. And I would just put forth that it's such a small amount of money. I don't think it's really going to help anybody develop many ADUs, even if that was really your hot thing that you were excited about.
With the place that interest rates are right now, I don't know that it makes any sense for the city to get into that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the preservation of, the Mary Erickson community housing. And if we have another place where money can come from to do that, I would suggest that we focus on options under activity number 6. And the number 1 priority for me would be another homeless outreach worker, but I'd like to open it up to the group and see what your thinking is.
So I have a question on number 6 on the rapid rehousing. When the last paragraph where it says the city could manage the program or provide funding to a sub-recipient to operate the program. Is that something in addition to like another Carly, or would that fall under like a Carly responsibility?
Was that for me, Sherry?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
It was a general question because I just budgeting wise, I didn't know
It is a separate item, not Carly's responsibility.
correct. We could probably give it to like a sub-recipient, like for example, if we wanted FAM to run the program for us, we would then give the FAM the money, do an agreement with them, or we would go out with an RFP for any nonprofit that wanted to run that program for us. That's kind of what that means. So the city could do it in-house. If it wouldn't be a Carly, maybe the other Carly, maybe could do part-time run that program. Those are all options.
Okay. So, and the position that would be maybe another Carly position, would that be a full-time or could it possibly be a part-time position?
It could be either or. It would be.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
So why
Can I ask? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to kind of hear from Carly, but I know she's not on anymore, but I'm wondering, because my thought was a second Carly would be beneficial, but I'm wondering if there's enough demand, if she feels that would be where the money would be best suited, and what difference hiring a second person is going to make. Because I know, like, for me personally, hearing the connections is a little frustrating because we want solutions and we want people to be placed and to be served. And I'm wondering if a second Carly would even make that difference. I don't know realistically.
So it seemed like she was enthusiastic about the idea, but I don't know what her priorities were because we didn't have the.
Yeah, she gave us a yes and a yes.
Yeah.
Right. So now, and the city does not staff positions that aren't needed. We have vacant positions, and the city manager would have the ultimate discretion, I think, on whether that was needed and to hire someone. I think we would just be, and what we're doing is a couple degrees removed from that, right? We'd be advising city council to make those funds available for the city manager if they need them, and if there's a value in having that role filled.
Oh, and then the
Is that
city
correct,
manager
Janet?
decides?
So
I think so.
Can I answer? I'll answer, Michelle. I did speak to Carly about this same topic, and she would love to have help, and not only with the outreach, but people to help get the documents, make the appointments. Like there's all this other paperwork. There's reports for HMIS. There's CDBG reports. There's all this documents.
All the clerical documentation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All the reports, the monthly outreach reports. And so she would love to have somebody to help her with that as well. So she felt there was a need for that.
Well, that really helps. Thank you. I feel like if she's expressing that, then I'd like to honor that. Real quick, is there a way to combine that with the item that proposes rides for people? Could the person who's hired also provide rides or at least arrange rides to
Yeah,
medical?
absolutely, absolutely. In fact, there might be enough funding, that the city could do that. Have that person arrange the rides and maybe pay for some of those rides as well with some of this funding.
I love it.
That seems like a great idea.
Can I make a motion, or are we not there yet?
We're there.
I'm there.
I'd
I
like to
second.
I'd like to make a motion, just for recording the minutes properly, that we use the funds to hire a second homeless outreach coordinator per Carly and Eric's, determination that that's needed, but also use those funds or that role for transportation for appointments as necessary.
And I second that motion. I think that's our best use of the funds.
I'd like to modify that we also want to see the Mary Erickson community be maintained at below market rate.
Bill, what is that? Is that Las Bolas? What is that?
I don't believe it is. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it's existing subsidized housing that is.
I don't know where it is.
These places are deed restricted, and I'm not sure if that's exactly how this one's run. But when that expires, those units quickly go up to market rate.
So Nina, do you know where it is?
There used to be one right off of Hermosa and the 5. I don't know if it still is, and I don't know if it was considered Section 8. I know there was a wait list trying to get people in there. I don't know. I'd sure like to find out, though. I've had people that I work with, the wait list has sometimes been like 5 years. And when people need housing and they don't have a lot of money, maybe you have that single working mom with 2 kids in, maybe high school. They can't afford much, but I don't know where it is.
Janet, do you have information on the location and the number of units?
I see that it's 12 units, but I don't know where.
12 units. I don't have the location. Handy with me. It was in the housing element.
133 West Canada. Right?
Kenyatta. Yeah, then that I think is the one I'm talking about, actually.
That's not at Vista Hermosa in the 5, though. Canada, isn't that down?
It's not too far from there, but it's not the one that you guys were thinking of. It's a different place. And this has been affordable housing in San Clemente for a long time. We'd be putting at risk families that have been here a long time. And I've lived through that, living in a place where the affordable designation expired. Rent zips up to market rate very quick. I was blessed and I got promoted and a better job every 6 months. So I was able to keep it, but I know I was lucky, and you can't count on that for everybody. So that is something I think should be supported, whether with these funds or with in lieu fee funds, however is necessary. And I just like to attach to the existing motion that item be pursued also.
So prior to finalizing our recommendation, we need to find out whether or not in lieu fee funds can be applied to funding the Mary Erickson housing to keep it low income or very low income, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can
it'd be good to know, but even if it's not, we have this grant, we have potentially the in lieu fee, there's CDBG grant opportunities and other funding opportunities. I think this would just be helping City Council to understand what we consider to be priorities.
Okay, so why don't I put together a little summary and everybody can review it and can find out where the money's going to come from. Unless is somebody recording this and
it's live on YouTube.
No, I know that. I meant recording it like in writing to where it's
the minutes?
The City Council, yeah.
Yeah, minutes will be done. Yes.
So, but just the purpose of this discussion is for us to make a recommendation for consideration of how to utilize those funds to City Council. So is it up to me to put together, and forgive me, because I've not worked in an advisory capacity to City Council before as a part of, a colleague in a committee, but is a written recommendation, should I put together just a written brief summary that we all review and agree on and then forward to city council? How does that work?
I can answer that question. So
Okay.
what we would be doing is just taking your recommendation. So Michelle made a motion, Rosemary seconded. Bill wanted to make an amendment to that motion. I don't know if the main person who made the motion, Michelle, accepted that amendment. So we're taking this, you'll vote on it, and that's the recommendation that staff will take and put into a staff report to city council. So you
Good.
guys
So
don't have to.
That's exactly what I was trying to understand is what form that takes. So thank you. Okay. So Michelle, do you accept Bill's amendment regarding preserving the affordable rental housing? Michelle? Since you made
You're
the,
muted, Michelle.
Oh, I didn't know it was up to me. Yes,
the way I
It's your
understand
motion,
that-
so you'd have to
It's
accept
your
the-
motion.
Yeah.
So Bill made
yes.
a
I
recommendation
agree.
to amend the motion.
Yes, I agree. If the committee feels that that's possible as well, I think I'd support that.
I'd like to take a poll of the committee. How about that? Okay, so first of all, does anybody second Michelle's acceptance of the amendment to the motion?
I second
I don't
it.
think that's required, is it? It's just accepted by
Okay.
the, I could be wrong, but I think if it's accepted, I think we're okay to vote on it. Or if it needs a
Okay,
second,
let's vote on it.
I will second the amended motion.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. To summarize, in order, the priorities that we wish to recommend that city staff will recommend to council on our behalf is an additional city or community outreach worker. Number 2, funding transportation, appointments, etc. And then number 3, preservation of affordable rental housing, which is the Mary Erickson community housing. So let's take a vote. Nina?
I approve.
Thank you. Bill?
I'm an aye.
Rosemary?
Aye.
Sherry?
I'm an aye.
You're absolutely welcome to discuss.
I guess I'm just not 100% confident in the Mary Erickson, but I do believe I am in support of the transportation and also another Carly. So I guess if there is additional funds left over after that, then I'm an aye for Mary Erickson.
Okay, so how about in descending order of priority? This will be for the recommendation, Janet and Cecilia, 1, 2, and 3 in descending order of priority. Is that acceptable to you, Sherry?
Yes.
Okay. And Michelle, since you accepted the amendment Bill suggested to your motion, then we don't need to ask your vote, right? Because you already said okay. And then Tom, are you yay or nay?
Nay.
Do you want to discuss it at all?
Well, yeah, I think obviously I'm ill-advised or ill-informed at this point to feel confident making a decision and spending money. I always like to, if I spend money, I like to make sure what I'm getting out of it. What's the benefit of it? How's it going to help the situation? The purpose of the money. I think there's a certain and whenever I've looked at homeless situations, obviously some people really do need help. And the thing is, I'm not really sure what is the best way to handle this. And the homeless situation, I'm not even sure how many, the number of people that are really homeless. I think I'm going to have to meet with Carly, maybe go to coffee or something. I feel very ill. I don't like to spend money unless I know what I'm spending it for. Okay. I've had enough Nordstrom's bills. I'd like to know what's going on, but basically, no. I don't want to vote for it right now. I don't know enough, and don't feel comfortable with spending the money on this yet right now.
Okay, fair enough. And just to be clear and clarify, this is just a recommendation that we're making to City Council based on how to allocate a grant that we're going to submit for.
Yeah, I don't want to even put a recommendation on it until I know more.
Fair enough.
So
Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
should we, because I'm a little concerned, like what Sherry said about the housing, if we don't even know the cost of that, you know, and we're listing all these things, does council decide that? Or should we look into this further and try to get the cost for that housing to see if it's even possible?
Michelle, the cost is there in the staff item. It's $128,000 for years 2024 through 2026.
So do we have enough to do that, to say after we take care of items 1 and 2 in our priorities, that there's enough for that as well?
See, we don't know, to your point, the costs aren't listed of each thing.
Right. So that's what I think is making us uneasy, right, Tom and Sherry?
Yes.
Maybe Janet.
We're a little
maybe you
outside
can-
our lane. I think that's
Yeah, and
that's
just
city
to
manager
provide some
stuff.
Just to provide some clarification, Janet, can you talk about the table on page 2 of the staff report that identifies the amount of money the city would receive each year? And then based on some of the recommendations made by the committee, what can be funded based on that amount or those amounts?
So for year 1, that would fund 2 outreach workers. Oh, and I needed to clarify on Michelle's motion, you said to fund an additional Carly, but you are agreeing to fund Carly as well too, right?
Oh, yes.
This would be
That's
fund
the item.
2.
Yes.
Oh, we didn't know we had to do that. We thought she was already helping.
No, she needs to be approved to be funded as well.
Oh, yeah, we want both. We want to.
Okay, good. So that is clarify that. And so year 1 would fund both of those. Year 2 would fund 2 and some transportation cost. And then year 3 and beyond, you know, it should fund 2 and some transportation, but that's all estimates. So we could have more. It's all based on the revenue from the real estate transactions. So right now the estimates are based on 2020 funds because that's what they've actually received. But 21, 22, those could be higher, they could be lower. But as it is right now, we could fund the 2 outreach workers and some of the transportation issues for the homeless to get to their appointments. And then in 2024, when the Mary Eckersons would become needed to be funded, you know, we'd have to look at how much that would be and how much funds revenue that we're getting and how much would be remaining. But if your priorities are to fund the outreach workers first, then we would use the funds to fund the priorities first. Did that kind of explain that, or do you need numbers or?
That explains it really well.
I've got a question about this. And this item, of course, was brought before council last year. Are the years in here the years that are in play, or are we basically calling year 1 2021 at this point?
No, year 1 is 2019 because that was the revenue that was actually received that year. And so.
Oh, so these funds are in hand. Is that correct? We have that.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So that's okay. Thank you. That clears everything up for me.
Yeah, that's why years 3 through 5 are still estimates because they haven't received that revenue yet.
Mm-hmm. Super.
Did that clarify it, or do you guys have any more questions on that?
Did everyone vote on the amended motion, or Rosemary? I don't remember if you had opportunity to vote.
I don't know where we were on this.
Okay, so why don't we start at the top? We're voting on the amended motion, descending order, funding the community outreach workers, including Carly, and then an additional one, so grand total of 2. Transportation funds to and from current appointments. And then a third item, when funds permit, is preservation of the Mary Erickson community housing, likely to occur in the year 2024. Committee member Dreyer, I guess this is a formal way to do it. Committee member Dreyer.
Yes.
Committee member Kritinger.
Yes.
Committee member Grace.
Yes.
Committee member Salas.
Yes.
Nay.
Tom, did you want to say something?
No, just same thing I said before. I'm not
Okay.
comfortable voting on any of this stuff until I understand more about what's going on.
Okay, fair enough. It just, we heard a noise, so I thought, I wasn't sure. Council member, or excuse me, community member Brooks.
Aye.
Thank you, and I'm I as well. Okay, yay, good, great discussion, everybody, thank you. Let's move on. Oh, did somebody have a comment?
Well,
So that was
that might be under
the one.
item 7, right? Just
Beg your pardon?
comments. General comments might be up under item 7.
Actually, no, I'm under 6B. I just thought somebody was trying to say,
Okay.
because I heard a noise, but maybe it's just my Zoom acting up. So in any case, under new business, item 6B on the agenda, consider and develop the Human Affairs Committee annual work plan for fiscal year 21-22. And I think we're gonna open up the forum to discuss developing the work plan and how to best go about that and where to go from here. So for those that have ideas on this, please contribute what you're thinking.
I have some ideas that can both inform the work plan and allow us to hopefully be very productive members of this committee. Of course, we're a committee of 7, so we can have up to 3 members meet without it constituting a Brown Act violation. And if we are discussing in those different groups subjects that are materially different, I think we're in good shape to do that with perfect compliance to those transparency and open meeting laws. A few, the work groups that I had in mind are senior issues and elder care, mental health and substance abuse, infants, children, and K-5 education issues, homelessness, and that to be kind of a research investigation sort of committee, or not committee, work group, housing policy and funding sources, which is also going to be very investigatory in nature. And then grade 6 to 12 and young adults up to maybe 27, 29, wherever we think the young adult cutoff is. And then, and this last one is something that I'm borrowing from the Public Safety Committee, but they had a work group focused on state legislative reviews. And for this committee, that could be very valuable. Looking at what comes out of Sacramento and reporting back to the rest of the committee on how that could affect San Clemente from a human affairs perspective. So if we could add, change, whatever you guys think to those, but if you're interested in one or more of those subjects, we could very effectively break off into work groups, and then a lot of our work plan could be those work groups reporting on what they've learned.
Bill, thank you so much for compiling that list. I think that that's super helpful to go from. Is there a way that, are we allowed to either screen share that so everybody can see and say, I'd like to choose that one, like in front of us? Or is Bill allowed to email us? Or is that, I don't think we're allowed to email, right?
There's something I can do. Let me see if I can set it up. I don't know. Hang on a second. Is that working? You guys see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Great.
Wait, what are you guys looking at?
The word test on his picture.
Sorry.
Okay. So we've got senior issues and elder care.
Oh, now we can't see, Bill, because it runs off your screen.
Oh, how do I change the size of it?
I don't know.
Bear with me a moment.
You're
I'm
just,
amazed you can do
I
that.
don't know what you're doing. It's just,
I
Oh,
know.
it's way too small. Hang on.
I'm already impressed.
I've barely
Yeah.
used this feature.
Oh, I never use it.
why does that not surprise me, Bill, that you know how to do something special on here?
I've got a man of many talents, I guess.
Oh, that works. Thank you,
Is
Bill.
okay, thank you. Thank you so much for working with me through that. So we got mental health and substance.
And per your math, Bill, how many should we pick? 4?
A person. Oh, thank you. You're so sweet to invite me to talk about the math. There's over 5,000 potential combinations of these members. There are 200, and that's assuming that like Bill, Nina, and Lisa is a different committee than Lisa, Nina, and Bill.
Which it's
if you
not.
remove It's really not. I agree. If you remove those, you're down to 210. And if we stick with the number of 7, each person can be on as many as 5 or 6, but you don't have to be.
Oh, okay. So
so-
let's just try to get a few on each.
Exactly. I mean, I guess if a work group doesn't have 2, then it's just a personal interest, and we should, certainly still be happy to hear about it. But I guess it wouldn't constitute a work group if there's just 2 people, or I'm sorry, just one person, right?
And
May I
then
make
no
a-
more than 3.
More than 3 would constitute a Brown Act violation.
No more
Yeah,
than
no
3.
more than
Right.
3, so 3 or less.
So-
And let me just share the purpose of work groups. We have to put forth a united work plan for city council to consider and determine what they agree with and where our priorities are for the work that we do for 2021 and 2022, right? So the work groups will allow us to break down into subgroups and really dive into a certain area, surface recommendations and priorities using the template, the annual work plan template, this one, right? And this talks about what the priorities are, what resources are required, and an estimated cost. And so we can boil it down in our areas of passion or interest, right? We can come up with specific, very tangible, actionable recommendations as a process of these work groups. And because it's 3 people or less, it's not considered a formal meeting and it's not a Brown Act violation. So we're able to schedule, we can meet every week if we wanted to and hone in on and really clean it up and prepare us for our next meeting where we'll be actually presenting the unified recommendation to city council. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay.
And I have a spreadsheet put together. I can kind of slot names under where people express interest. But before we do that, did anybody want to add, change, or modify any of these potential work groups?
I have some ideas.
Grades 6 through 12.
Panhandling.
That fits under, I feel like, the homelessness research and investigation work group,
Okay.
potentially. I don't know if
How about-
panhandling specifically is a big enough issue to, it's an issue certainly, but I don't know if it's gets a whole work group, just my opinion.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't like it. I don't like it any more than anybody else, but it's a facet, I feel, of the homelessness issue.
I have a question, Bill. When you say like the 6th one, grade 6 through 12's young adults issues and programs.
Mhm.
When earlier you had mentioned where's our cutoff date, our cutoff age for young adults, which really might dovetail into Tom's concerns about not the high schoolers, but maybe once they're out of high school, the 20-somethings. Would they fit in that category? Because maybe trying to pull together housing for them as they're trying to get started in life. I don't know. I just wanted to know what the cutoff date. You see what I'm saying?
We could call it 30 if we want to. That
30's
high 20s, right? But if we, I love where your head's at on there. All these things are related, which is why they're all Human Affairs Committee issues. They're all germane to our committee. And the kind of combination of those issues, I think, would be really exciting and interesting to do. But that would take place at one of our meetings like this, right? But based on the issues that Tom's shared, I think he might be interested in the one you suggested and maybe the mental health and substance abuse. And there's no reason he couldn't serve in both of those. And
right.
Yeah. With
So
a
what
couple
about
different people.
human trafficking? Would that be one that we would want to add in there since it's kind of been something that's been part
I
of?
think so. Yes.
It's not a
Totally
bad idea
agree
at
on
all.
that. Human trafficking is a big thing. Got to
Yeah,
cover
it's
that.
a very serious issue that doesn't really fit. Well, the only thing I could say is that that's a crime and that's a public safety committee function.
I was
right?
going to say that too.
I mean,
think it's
it's definitely a human issue, but I think it might be more germane to the public safety committee, right?
I have a question, and maybe Tom can answer this. Like for me, drug use, drug awareness for children, and suicide I would like to see that handled separately from mental health and substance abuse, because it's a completely different subset of individuals with different needs. For example, homeless individuals that have substance abuse issues are vastly different from teenagers at San Clemente High School, wondering whether or not they should try heroin, or, they take a laced Vicodin or something and it has fentanyl in it. So I'm just,
this is great. I love it. I mean, getting someone that we would have that would be like a hotline or something like that, that would be specifically San Clemente related, to be hooked into the high school, grade schools, where there's a place or a name or a person or a phone number that would provide some sort of rescue service for these kids. It's like, I don't know, where do they go? I mean, they're on social media, and it's like, it's a cesspool of misinformation and degeneracy. So
I think that's a great tactical point to bring up, Tom, when we're putting together the work plan, when you're talking about specific ideas, and then you can attach funding that'll be required, and resources that will be required. But the broader question is, do we need a whole different category of teenage drug use, drug abuse, and suicide?
I feel like that does actually fit quite naturally in mental health and substance abuse. And I didn't really associate, like, infants, children in K through 5. That's not homeless infants, children in K through 5. It's just, I mean, we're on this committee for all the humans in San Clemente, not just the ones that are homeless. So I guess I put the homeless specifically into one committee. So I did see that suicide and drug use to fit very well into substance abuse and mental health.
Okay, that's going to be, that's a lot to cover in one work group.
But they're extremely related. They're just so related. Normal mentally healthy people don't commit suicide. Typically, it's so driven by mental illness, and most of the time substance use disorders as well. So it would be like trying to separate Siamese twins,
With your expertise, Nina, I'm so glad that you're on this committee and that you can clarify that, because that makes a lot of sense to me.
It's just so typical.
Whatever we put it under, I guess, whatever we put it under, I'm really feels very strongly about what Tom is saying. I mean, I have a child that's almost 14, so he's going to be going through all this, and we're already seeing all this. And so whatever bucket it falls under, I think it needs to be a main focus. And I know it's a passion of Tom's, and I know it's in our high schools, and it's really in the teenage years is where you really want to start talking to those kids. So I do think it is a mental health and substance abuse issue, but when you have the grade 6 through 12 and young adult issues, it's kind of the same thing. So it's just a big bucket, I think. But
that was my point, Sherry. You're picking up on.
Yeah.
I thought about how that could be potentially one group, but really, when you take it to the further extremes, like the needs of infants and like preschool children in this community are so radically different from the needs of young adults. As you get closer, if you're looking at a 5th grader and a 6th grader, yeah, they're not so different, right? But when you got to draw the line somewhere, right? And we can change that. It could be K through 8, perhaps, right? If that's a better fit. But I don't think that should be just one group, because that's so much to cover.
That was my point that I was trying to get to, Bill, is that it's a huge amount.
Yeah, I think each of these is a ton and a half to cover, and we will not get to it all. But I hope that we can do some good work on the committee and provide valuable advice to council.
Agreed.
So
okay. So with all the different headings, the areas that Bill's come up with, does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add?
Well, I just wanted to point out that also, there's a lot of overlap with the teens and the drug use, but also with homelessness too. So, and with panhandling. So, gypsies, and then human trafficking, kids that are homeless teens and drug addicts now because they were trafficked and released here. They were sober living homed and released here. So I think there's a lot of overlap no matter what. And I think That's just the specialty under those headings. And then we're going to work together anyway as a whole committee.
Thank you, Michelle. Exactly. I mean, these are all germane to the Human Affairs Committee. They're all related, and we will all discuss them. And decisions will be done by vote.
Right.
So, yeah, these
Fair
are.
enough. So these are subcommittees. So I propose that we person by person go through, and Bill, if you would be.
I am ready to take those notes. So.
Okay. Thank you. And if people could just raise their hand on whatever work groups they'd like to be a part of.
Sherry, where would you like to?
I'll start with the first one, the senior issues, and then you can put me wherever the teen issues fall.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. And next on my, if I can go off my Zoom screen order, the next person would be Nina.
It's just really too hard to pick. I mean, I could almost like how many is reasonable?
Based on the math of person, it depends on your personal schedule. Based on the math, you can do up to 6. I don't know. I don't think I could recommend that in good faith to anybody. That's a lot of work. But
and how many times would we meet a month? Once?
Again,
with each little group?
Yeah, each group would do that on their own. I mean, you could just pick up the phone. If it's one other person, pick up the phone and call them. Meet them for coffee, whatever.
So this is a work group to come up with our annual work plan suggestions that we as a committee during our next meeting are going to go through to weed down so that we have a cohesive plan that we all agree on, that we've discussed to put forth to City Council.
I think it can inform the work plan a great deal, but I don't think that once the work plan is established, the work groups should go away. I think they should continue and work on those items, right? Okay, cool. We're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, but the initial, just the introduction is the
the first thing, it will be picking items and putting them on the work plan. So for example, the substance abuse, if they want to focus on those more serious and extreme cases, that is certainly something they can do and put on the work plan.
Okay.
So I would postulate that 2, perhaps 3 is the max bandwidth anybody would have.
That's what I'm thinking.
Unless they're retired or something. But yeah, 2 or 3 is probably wise. I agree. But just under the math, you can do up to 6 without necessarily triggering a Brown Act violation.
And realistically, then maybe 2 to 3. What if it was
asleep, you can do 6, but maybe 2 or 3.
I would like to be part of the mental health and substance abuse.
I was hoping you would.
And then the young adult issues and programs, and then the 2 that are some semi-homelessness research and investigation, but housing policy and funding sources. Maybe I would pick that second one, the housing policy and funding sources. It kind of picking up on the idea that Tom had brought up. I don't know that. Just to build off his idea, there might be homes that we may be able to find grant funding to rent for people that have CPMI, like chronic persistent mental illness, but not smart. They don't have the cognition to take their medication. They need some oversight. So I'd like to be on that one then. I think would be really helpful, because I think it really does. There's so much overlap between a lot of these issues, as we've already discussed, but I think I'd pick those 3.
Nina, I have you down for mental health, just to confirm, mental health and substance abuse, and 6 to 12 in young adult issues.
Yeah.
And I put a star next to housing policy and funding and homelessness research. And I thought of that after, sorry, Sherry, I didn't think of this beforehand. But if more than 3 people are interested in issues, not everybody can do it, of course, right? Somebody has to drop off. Or
I see what you're saying.
Next, right? So Sherry, do you have any second tier choices behind those 2, or just those 2?
So would you put me under senior issues and grade 6 through 12 and young adult issues? Is that where you have me?
That's correct. Yes.
Then I guess I would also do the mental health and substance abuse.
I think that's the one that's going to be most full, but I'll put you under there with a star and we'll see how that shakes out.
All right, thank you.
You're most welcome. And next on my Zoom screen would be then Lisa. What are your preferences?
I'd like to do homelessness research investigation and elder care.
And elder care, very good. I think you guys will make a great team on elder care.
Why?
Well, I'm elderly, so.
Just because you're Sherry. During the interview, you sounded like you were really involved in that.
I'm only kidding, Bill.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, I've got Rosemary. What is your preference?
I would like to do senior issues and elder care, the mental health and substance abuse, and how about grades 6 through 12 and young adult issues programs.
All righty. And Michelle, what are your preferences?
I would love mental health and substance abuse, homelessness research and investigation, and then I can't decide, maybe the grades 6 through 12 and young adult issues.
Okay. And Tom, what are your preferences? Thomas, can you?
Oh, yeah,
you're
I'm here.
muted
Okay,
there.
here. Yeah, I tell you what, state legislative review, mental health, substance abuse, and grades 6 through 12 young adult issues. Those 3 committees.
Okay.
And
So
Bill,
I
what
do
are
have.
yours?
State legislative review, 6 to 12, and substance abuse.
I appreciate that you picked the legislative review. I think you're a good fit for that, and I like that also. And I was like, oh, nobody else wants to do it. But thank you, Tom.
That's a pain in the ass.
That'll be.
Just
It
figure out
is.
what's
It
going
is. But
on.
if you got a head for it and you don't mind reading that stuff, it's a good fit for you.
Bill,
I
I
hope
was
I like
laughing
reading
at
it.
that one.
Were you?
And-
Okay.
Yeah, because I
That's
was
all.
thinking, well, it's perfect for you. None of us are choosing it.
Public Safety Committee has been doing it. It seems like it's something worthwhile. So again, thanks for that, Tom. I'm slotting myself under state legislative review, housing policy and funding sources investigation, and homelessness research investigation. And where that leaves us is with a perfectly sized group for senior issues and elder care. And that's Sherry. Oh, and Janet, I'll share this Excel file with you when I'm finished, so you have it. But I've got Sherry, Lisa, and Rosemary on senior issues and elder care. Under mental health and substance abuse, we do have a lot of interest. Michelle and Sherry, those were your last selections. And the others were Nina, Rosemary, and Tom. Are any of you willing to?
Yeah, I'll take that off as long as I stick with grade 6 through 12 and young adult issues and programs.
That shouldn't be a problem. And then I got, we need to trim one more out of that group, unfortunately.
Wait, so who is it again?
Hey, nobody was interested in the little kids. Too bad. I'll get in on that one. My kids are all are about to be out of that age, but that's okay.
I mean, I have kids that age, but it's not my focus.
Yeah, you're looking ahead.
I mean,
looking
for
ahead,
this.
right?
I mean, for this.
Right.
My kids are my focus. I mean, my kids are totally my focus, but other ones, I'm not worried about that.
I'm sure they don't watch the Human Affairs Committee meetings, Michelle. You'll be okay.
My son just popped in, if you saw him.
Oh, I didn't. All right. So I've still got Nina, Rosemary, Michelle, and Tom on mental health and substance abuse. And based on Nina's formal training and Tom's passion and experience, I'd hate for either of them to leave it. So I guess it's down to Rosemary or Michelle.
That's fine. I can do something else.
Rosemary, you're pulling out? Thank you.
Are you sure, Rosemary? Because I was just going to say what.
It's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we do have you in 2 other ones, Rosemary, and we can always tweak. We can always tweak. This is a draft. Moving
Yeah,
on.
that's fine.
Thank you.
That's fine.
We have one person too many in homelessness research and investigation.
I could step out of that one.
Nina, you're going to drop out of that one?
Yeah.
Thank you. That solves that problem. And then grade 6 to 12 in young adult issues is packed at 5. So We've got Sherry Grace, Nina Dreyer, Rosemary Salas, Michelle, and Tom. And I'll just throw out there, nobody else wanted to talk about the little ones. So if one of you will jump into that one, that'll help, or perhaps two.
Well, do we get a say in, like, do we even think that that's an issue? I mean, I'm not sure I want to spend, I don't. see
If
that
if
as
nobody
our
else, yeah, if nobody wants to talk about it, I guess we can agree that it's not a pressing
Yeah, I
issue
don't think
for the
that's a
committee,
big
right?
issue.
I just feel like all these other things are already a
Bigger.
full-time job for a volunteer committee, and I don't see that as a pressing issue.
I agree, and that's just kind of what happens when you go through this. So
Totally.
that will simply not be a working group, and that's
Okay.
fine.
I agree with Michelle.
Would anything like special needs, in that capacity?
Oh, where does that fall? Oh, good point. Where do you think that best fits in here? I would think
Well, it
that's
might
an
be its
infant
own-
thing.
It might be its own category instead of infant children.
Maybe we change that then to special needs, how would you phrase that?
Um,
Children with special needs.
children and parents with special needs.
Children
Um,
and families, fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I only came to mind because I was looking at some of the groups, nonprofits that have petitioned for grant funds. And one of them was called a parent-to-parent strategies, and that was kids with special needs. And so I don't know if that's where that came from.
Astute observation, Sherry. That should definitely have informed the working groups. So I've changed that on my spreadsheet. I'll change it here on the screen.
What's she doing? Hmm?
Okay. So, well, with that, I guess I will inquire between Sherry, Nina, Rosemary, Michelle, and Tom, which of you might be interested in switching from the grade 6 to 12 and young adult issues to children and families with special needs?
I don't
So for
mind
me-
stepping off so someone else can do it, but I don't know much in the arena of special needs. I kind of other focuses.
Yeah, I mean, I'm passionate about the 6 to 12 and young adults just because that's where I'm at in my life right now, along with the senior issues. I would be happy to join the children and families with special needs because that also impacts me personally. So that would be something I'd be interested in, but I'd really like to work with Tom on the teen issues with the high schools and whatnot.
Well, aside from you and Tom, that teen and young adult issues has Nina, Rosemary, and Michelle. So that one's, like I said, kind of packed to the gills, and a couple people
Could we break that up then into two different? Could we break that up at all? So that
how would you give me some ideas? We could certainly split that up.
I don't know, teen suicide, and then there might be other issues. I mean, what other, 6 through 12, a lot of times that's drug issues where you're, in the 6th grade through 12th is that's where you start teaching your kids basically about, substance abuse, in my opinion.
I feel like that's a little bit of a public safety committee thing. It's still, it fits a bit under both. And then the suicide, of course, fits just right into mental health and substance abuse. And that one we have a nice 3 on, but I definitely want people to be able to dig into what they're interested in.
Well, then maybe I should step off since I'm on mental health and Rosemary gave me that. She stays on, and then the committee
Okay, that solves part of that.
Overlap.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, or we could parse out grade 6 through 12 from young adults we have like a whole generation of lost souls that are 20 somethings, which is different from middle school and high school, whose lives are still so regulated, parents usually at home, school activities. So I don't know, it's a thought.
I mean, we can
Because
easily
that
move that
could
up to like grades
dovetail.
9 to 12, right? Leave the middle school kids out of it.
I think it's appropriate middle school, and the drugs start then, and a lot of the issues.
Okay.
I think that's a good grouping, but I think parsing
It
out
is a big group, isn't
parsing
it?
out the 18 and above, maybe 18 to 30-year-olds, which I actually think really dovetails well
We can
with
do
the
that as
housing
another group.
policy and funding issues. I
So
see that as a real joining, but
okay. What I think I'm certainly agreeable to that. Does anybody have anybody opposed or with another idea, or are we okay to split grade
So
6 to 12 and young adult issues into grade 6 to 12 separate young adult issues?
and then you could take me off of it because I'd rather be with the I'd be with the young adult issues and programs. So that kind of maybe takes that number down for the grade 6 through 12. I don't know.
That would take it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm making those revisions right now on the spreadsheet, and I will make them on the other thing shortly.
Rosemary, which would you prefer, young adult or teens, 6 through 12?
It doesn't matter really to me. The high school age.
That's okay. That's you in there. Who else wanted to do grade 6 to 12?
I did.
I did.
Tom
Tom?
Walsh said.
Me and
Okay.
Tom.
Gotcha, Tom.
Yeah.
I feel I just.
Well, Tom, I've got you in young adult issues and programs too. Did you want to? If you want to do both, that's fine. You'll be in 3 when that's at the end of the day. You'll be in mental health and substance abuse, young adult issues, and grade 6 to 12.
That's fine. That's
okay.
fine. The whole thing is you got to catch these kids early. You got to create programs.
I agree.
You got to have the right stuff going. And if we can do that as a city, that'd be a great thing for the families that live here.
I agree. So with those revisions, I think we have a Brown Act compliant set of working groups. May I run through them quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. So for senior issues and elder care, I have Sherry, Lisa, and Rosemary.
Okay.
For mental health and substance abuse, I have Nina, Michelle, and Tom. For children and families with special needs, I slotted myself in there, and I'm on there with Sherry. We've got room for one more if anybody wants. Homelessness research and investigation is going to be Lisa, Michelle, and myself. Housing policy and funding sources is going to be Nina and I. Young adult issues and programs is Sherry, Nina, and Tom. State legislative review is going to be me and Tom. Grade 6 to 12 issues is I have Rosemary and Tom.
Wait, I think you got that. I think I'm in the 6 to 12. There was something.
Did I?
Me
Sherry,
too.
are you? Okay, so I've got room for one more in 6 to 12.
I'll do it. Or wait, Sherry, which one are you, Sherry, 6 through 12 or young adult?
Why don't how about I tabulate how many each of us is in, and that way if we have anybody that's.
I was in 6 to 12, and then I think you named something, Bill, before that I wasn't in.
Well, I think you might have been in the younger kids, and then when I renamed it, it's now children and families with special needs. If you're not interested in that one,
I was in senior, children and special needs, and grade 6 through 12. I think is the 3 I was in.
Okay, so I'll put you back. I'll get you. I'm sorry if I goofed that up. So I'm slotting you into grade 6 to 12, and I am now just gonna tabulate how many that has each of us in.
This is Janet. Can I just clarify? So you're going to have on the work plan, all those are going to be your projects. So you're going to have 8 projects. Is that what I'm understanding?
No.
Okay.
That looks like 8. That's 8 work groups, Janet. So I understand where you came up with that number. I'm not sure I mean, some of these should definitely be a project. I guess I'm not clear on which. Well, for example, state legislative review doesn't need to be a project. That's something that's informative, right? An investigational informative.
Yeah, but you would want to list it on your work plan. So that's where I'm just trying to get clarity. Yeah. If you want all that on your work plan, that's a lot.
This is not synonymous with the work plan. Yeah, this is not the work plan, but it's part of it, right?
So here's what we're going to do, Janet. We're going to have these subgroups. We're going to have the working groups. We're going to distill out the priorities and the areas of focus of each of these working groups. Then, as a committee, we're going to winnow down what the priorities are and put together the work plan based on that whole wealth of information that each of these work groups come up with. and we're going to funnel it down into an agreed upon work plan with priorities, timing, resources required, etc.
Perfect.
For example, if you take a look at all of these headings, they could each have 10 different things that we want to do. So these work groups, we clearly don't have the resources, nor do we have the manpower, nor would it make any sense. We don't want to be jack of all trades, master of none. So once we have all these subgroups, we meet, we discuss what we wish to accomplish, we'll get together as a group, we'll winnow it down to priorities, then we'll put that into the final annual work plan that we wish to submit to City Council.
Okay.
Does it make sense for the work groups to meet on their own before the next meeting?
Yes.
Put together a couple work plan items each.
Yes.
And then bring them all to the next meeting where we'll finalize that work plan. And of course, Tom and I, we won't have, when we're reviewing the legislation, we probably won't have any work plan items, but we will report on what Sacramento's up to the rest of the committee.
So to close the loop on that, Bill, what I was going to suggest is once you send out, and thank you for doing all this work. Once you send out the Excel spreadsheet to all of us, and we see, who we're working with and so forth, one person per work group can be sort of the communication hub. You communicate with each other, you figure out when you're going to meet, you set it up, you do the predicate work, and you have it just down to a form that can be communicated to the rest of us, the rest of the members. And when we circle back together during our next meeting is October. Well, it says it has to be submitted October 28th. So how do we meet, Janet, how do we meet as a group without it being a Brown Act violation to winnow down all of the priorities and come up with a finalized work plan before October 28th?
I think we have another meeting, don't we?
What?
We have a meeting
We have
October
October.
12th. So, I'm envisioning you could approve it at that point, the work plans.
Oh, here it is. Duh. I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay, so forgive me, you guys. I've been up since 4:30 this morning. Okay, so we're going to meet October 12th. We'll take all of the down content that each of the subgroups has come up with. We'll hash through all of it. So that's what the majority of our time should be devoted to, Janet, when you're crafting the agenda, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And we'll go through that and do a really good job of working through all of that. And then we'll agree on the priorities and go from there. Does that sound
I have a question. How are we going to get in touch with each other? I heard someone say we're not supposed to email each other, or how do I contact, or after I guess we get Bill's spreadsheet, how do I pull, or how does the little mental health group come together? Can we email?
Per the Brown Act, 3 people or less can communicate. You can call each other on your phones, you can email one another, we can discuss issues. It's just once you go beyond 3 people, that's considered a meeting, a formal meeting, subject to agenda publishing rules, inviting the public to comment, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why we're keeping it 3 or less. And yes, to answer your question, you can email one another.
Great.
Your phones, whatever you want to do.
Thank you.
And we're allowed to email each other through the city emails, right? The city emails we have. So
I expect so. Just don't do a reply all if we're all on it and you're okay.
Yeah. So Nina, you can use the city emails for us. That's where everything's kind of logged. And Bill, I think, are those our tallies for
yes.
our,
Sorry, I didn't really say what that was.
Tom and I were probably 3, I think.
You know what? I see I did mistranscribe something. Let me fix that. Thank you. I have you guys, and the spreadsheet will be going out. I sent it to you, Janet, already, so you've got it in your inbox.
Okay. All right, as long as it's on the spreadsheet.
Yeah,
that's fine.
you're on the spreadsheet. I see 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, yeah. So I just typoed in my.
So Bill, when you review the spreadsheet, oh, sorry, go, Michelle.
Oh, no, sorry, Bill, you never finished saying who was on which committee, and I thought I was on either the 6 to 12 or the young adults, but no big deal because that might have been the one everybody wanted. So I just want to make sure I know what I'm on. Can you just finish reading through everything?
Certainly. Senior issues in elder care, I have Sherry Grace, Lisa and Rosemary. For mental health and substance abuse, I have Nina, Michelle, and Tom. For children and families with special needs, there is Sherry and myself. For homelessness research and investigation, we've got Lisa, Michelle, and myself. Housing policy and funding source investigation, that's Nina and I. Young adult issues and programs, I have Sherry, Grace, Nina, Dreyer, and Tom. For state legislative review, I have Tom and I. And for grade 6 to 12 issues, I have Rosemary, Tom, and Sherry. And there's room in state legislative review, housing policy, and children and families with special needs, if anybody else wanted to tag into those. But
What are you
the
going to
others
do
are
on the
full.
state legislation review? Just look at.
We're going to nerd out over things that are either, I don't want to review everything that's before the state Senate and state assembly, but things that are either highly likely to pass or have recently passed and maybe are awaiting signature or were recently signed. I'll be reviewing those with an eye toward how they will impact the Human Affairs Committee and the subjects that we discuss here.
Okay, can you put me on there just put me on there, and if I decide I don't have enough time, I'll let you know.
Yeah, certainly. If any of you find that you don't have the bandwidth for one of the work groups, just coordinate with the other members. These are totally informal groups. You can meet however, do your work however you please, but among yourselves, and I don't think it needs to be the same person for every report or discussion. It can be worked out issue by issue, but just have some, be on the same page. When I guess the way I envision it is the work group should be on the same page when they go to the total committee. And I would hope that even though each work group only has 2 or 3 people, that the rest of us would appreciate the work that those other people did and generally support what they come up with if there's anything that requires a vote.
Well, to your point, we have a lot of groups and a lot of ground to cover.
Mm-hmm.
We may, once we review all the great work that the work groups have done, we may have to make some difficult decisions about prioritization, what comes first, what comes next.
Mm-hmm.
We really wish to focus our recommendations because we may not be able to do everything.
Oh, I'm sure we won't.
I think it'll become clearer once the work groups meet and come up with recommendations.
Okay.
Okay.
Just to clarify, the work group is going to just hone in and then make suggestions in the next meeting. So when we're all together, we'll all be privy to those discussions and ideas and then decide what we then recommend to council. Is that right?
That's going to be what we accomplish at the October 12th meeting.
I didn't plan on keeping minutes of the work group meetings. I don't think anybody wants to do that. But basically I guess the work groups should record what they come up with. Right? I guess I don't want to necessarily know about all the discussions that happen within the work groups.
No, we want the final product.
Yeah.
Right. So what I would like to suggest is for each of the work groups, come ready at the October 12th meeting with your best efforts regarding recommendations in terms of tactics, resources needed, and timing in each of the set topics. Because we're going to have to, October 12th, we're going to have to go through all of it together, and we're going to have to force rank everything that we've come up with and figure out what's going to be in the final product that we recommend to council in a fully formed work plan by October 28th.
If you haven't had a chance, if anyone hasn't been able to review the work plan from the prior year or the template, Lisa's exactly right on the things that are in there. The estimated cost, the timeline, it gets into some specifics. So that thank you, Lisa, for making that clear to everyone.
Well, because an idea is great, but if it's not actionable, there's no timeline and there's no resources attached to it, it's going to be very difficult for us to judge what the priorities should be as a team.
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Does anybody else have any other comments on this before we move on and conclude the meeting? Okay, so item number 7 on the agenda. Communications from city staff and committee members. Does anybody have anything else we wish to address? Okay, So 7A, the joint council, we have a joint council with all the committees meeting on Tuesday, November 30th from 5:30 to 9 at Wedgwood, which I guess is a meeting room. It's San Clemente Muni Golf Course.
Lisa, there's nothing on this agenda for public comment, and I don't expect we necessarily had any, but Janet, was there any comments submitted by members of the public?
No, we have not received them. And because it was a special meeting, that's probably why there's not a public comment
Oh, okay.
area.
Thank you.
I think the normal scheduled meetings have an area for public comment, presentations from the public, but because this was a special meeting.
Oh, is that not in special meetings? I wasn't sure if it was not in special meetings or if it was just missed from this one.
I believe it's not supposed to be on special
Oh,
meetings.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Tuesday, October 12th will be our next regularly scheduled meeting where we'll be subject to comments.
Yes.
It sounds like, right, Janet?
Yes. And there will always be an area on the agenda for public comments. They can always send them in through an email. We'll read them at the meeting, or they can show up and provide a short presentation.
Excellent. All right.
Can I ask a question about the next meeting then will be at the regularly scheduled time of 3 o'clock or?
3:30 on October 12th.
3:30 on October 12th. And then from there on out, it's 3:30 and they're all via Zoom and 3:30?
As of now, they're all through via Zoom and they're all at 3:30. Yes, this was different because it was a special meeting. So if you guys were to call a special meeting for some reason, then that isn't guaranteed it would be at 3:30. You would pick the time on that, but all of the regularly scheduled meetings from here on out are at 3:30. The Zoom, right now the city's policy is that they're all still via Zoom, but that could change.
So Janet, I have a question before we wrap. If, as we're going through, so we have the meeting on October 12th. If, we're going to have a lot of content to go through, and it's very difficult for, many of us to have routine 2.5 hour or 3 hour meetings with all of our individual obligations. So if we need a part 2, are we able to call a special meeting that's a briefer meeting if we have to divide up the subject matter to come up with the final recommendation work plan? Or do we have the ability to do that?
To call a special meeting?
Yes.
Yes, I believe you do. Just keep in mind the time frame between them. And we'd also have to make sure that IT had availability and that there wasn't another like council meeting or another meeting that they would have time in that time period to accommodate it.
Okay, so what I would ask is for our members at the next meeting, be prepared to go through the whole list of, recommendations that your subgroup comes up with. But if time doesn't permit, we can certainly call a briefer special meeting to go through the remainder of the items and, come to agreement on what we're going to use in our final recommendation to council. Because looking at everything, it looks like there's a lot of work to do, a lot to get through, and it's very difficult, I know, for many of us to take, a 2.5, 3 hour chunk out of the day.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you would like, then that could be the only item on the agenda for the October meeting, if you'd like to keep it just that agenda item.
Before we move to that, Janet, the city has to submit its housing element update. And I would like for the Human Affairs Committee to submit some input on that housing element. It's completely germane to this committee. And when does the city have to have that in? November?
I'm not sure, but I believe it's very soon. It's
coming up. Yeah, it would have to be at the October meeting if it's to be done. And it's a worthwhile endeavor. So, Lisa, would you put that on the agenda alongside the work plan?
Absolutely. And
thank you.
Here's an idea. Since I just have a premonition that we're going to need more time to go through all of the ideas that the subgroups come up with and really weed through the details on that and come up with the final work plan recommendation. Should we schedule a straw man, a proposed special meeting date right now while we all have each other in the context of this meeting. And then if we don't need it, we can cancel it, but at least we have it on the books before, after October 12th, before the due date for our final recommendation on the work plan of October 28th. So it would be between October 12th and October 28th.
There's 1 week that would be open. I mean, so they're only 2 weeks apart. So we'd have to go the week of Monday, the 18th through Friday, the 22nd.
Right.
I like that idea very much. That way you can have the special meeting blocked off if you need it. If we don't need it, if we don't show up, there's no quorum, meeting's over.
And then everybody can plan accordingly with
exactly
obligations, if that's okay.
It would be awful to try to rush staff and everyone to coordinate last minute. So I think you were wise to plan that special meeting.
Okay, so it would be to the.
So Janet, could we please look at the week of October 18th through 22nd?
Got it.
Is it 3:30? Beg your pardon?
It's a dark Friday on the 22nd, so we're talking the 18th to the 21st. So it would be that Monday through Thursday.
Excellent. And may I please ask if it's okay with everyone that we start at 3:30 or 4 o'clock so that it's toward the end of the workday?
Works for me.
Is that amenable to everybody? Give me a thumbs up if that sounds okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. I just don't want to meet my own needs and not be considering everybody else's needs. So why don't we say 3:30, Janet, start time?
Okay, we can do that.
18th through 21st, one of those days.
Granted, I'll have to coordinate with IT and see their availability. Like they might not be available that time frame or that day. So I'll get with them. So is this going to be like a tentatively scheduled and then as needed?
We're going to schedule it. We're going to consider it confirmed.
Okay.
And following the meeting on the 12th, we'll determine whether or not we need the special meeting.
And what date did you say, Lisa?
It's the week of October 18th. It'll be the 18th through the 21st, Michelle, 3:30 in the afternoon on one of those days, pending IT's availability.
All right.
So it'll be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I'm unavailable 2 of those. We're leaving for
Okay, so what dates are those? So Janet knows, she'll take note of it.
Wait, are you asking me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
What dates are you available?
I can't do the
Janet can ask
19th.
you.
Sorry, there's so much feedback. I can't do the 19th or the 21st. I have another board meeting obligation set for on the 19th. And
So
then
why don't we try Wednesday, October 20th, 3:30, Janet, if that would work.
Yeah,
That works for me.
Because there's a council meeting on the 19th, so that would have been a conflict with the IT folks. So the 20th is probably better. So we'll do October 20th at 3:30, subject to IT's availability to, that would be a special meeting.
And you'll let us know if that'll work, right? Via email?
I will let you know. I will let you know, Chair, as the
Wonderful.
chair. Yeah, hopefully it will. If not, then I'll ask IT for a couple other alternate times and maybe we could make those work.
Fair enough. We appreciate your help. Just so much to do and so little time. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're at the conclusion of our agenda, everyone. Are there any remaining open items before we adjourn for today?
Can I ask a quick question? Since we're not allowed to email each other, is there a way for Bill to just the list of everybody on each committee? Can that go through Janet or who can send that out?
Janet already has it in her inbox.
He sent that to me, so I'll forward that to all you guys later this afternoon.
Thank you. And then we're set for October 12th at 3:30 is our next meeting. I'm just calendaring it.
Yes.
October 12th, 3:30. And
yes,
waiting for confirmation, October 20th, 3:30 as 2 of the October 12th meeting. So the October 12th is our standard monthly or bi-monthly recurring meeting. October 20th would be considered a special meeting.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
and
Okay.
just one note. So the process that would happen for this meeting, so usually on the Monday before the meeting or the Friday before, we will send you the agenda items and all of the attachments as we did this time. And then usually the day before is when you'll get all the Zoom information. So that's kind of standard. IT gives us that the day before. At least while we're doing the Zoom platform, that's kind of the process.
Perfect.
Okay. And hey, Janet, this brought to mind something that occurred. Some people don't have scanners and printers to sign that document acknowledging the meeting.
Yes.
Way for them to e-sign, that you can email it out to us and, you know, do an e-document signature that we can.
We will figure out a better process for that. That's only applied to the special meetings.
Right.
So it won't be an issue until the October 20th, and we will come up with a solution for how we can make that a little easier.
That would be great. We sure appreciate it. Okay, well, thank you all. This was a really productive meeting. Thank you for all the excellent thought you put into it. We're going to have some great work groups, and it's just going to be really fun to see and so helpful to see all this knowledge come together and this experience come together in an organized format and a plan. So I'm really excited. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Your trust.
Thanks very much.
Tom, I look forward to working with you as major domo. And thanks, everybody. Is there anything else we need to cover, Ms. Jenna?
No, you just need to officially adjourn.
Okay, well, thank you for all your help, Janet. I'm officially adjourning our meeting, folks.
Thank you, everybody. Great job,
Thanks.
Lisa.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Bye.
Mel.
Thanks.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, check
Okay.
your emails.